You believe you are free. You make choices, set goals, shape your future. You think that your actions are your own, guided by reason and free will. But what if I told you that everything you do, every thought, every desire, every decision was never yours to begin with? That freedom, as we understand it, is nothing more than an illusion. Schopenhauer saw reality for what it was: cold, indifferent, and governed by forces beyond our control. He argued that we are not the architects of our own lives, but passengers, drifting along a predetermined path, mistaking movement for choice. Every action we take is dictated by causes we do not see, by instincts we do not control, by a world that was never ours to shape. But if freedom is an illusion, what does that mean for us? If we are not in control, is there any escape? And more importantly, can we ever find peace in a world where we were never truly free? This is Schopenhauer's brutal reality, a truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Let's break it down. Freedom feels real. Every day, we make decisions: what to eat, where to go, who to trust. We believe we are in control, that our choices are deliberate, that we shape our own lives. But Schopenhauer saw through this illusion. He argued that what we call choice is nothing more than a predetermined sequence of causes and effects, a chain reaction stretching far beyond our awareness. The truth is unsettling. We do not choose our desires. We do not decide what we want, what we fear, or what drives us forward. These things arise on their own, shaped by biology, experience, and circumstances we did not create. A person does not wake up one day and decide to crave power, love, or meaning. These impulses are already there, embedded deep within them. And once they appear, we do not control them. We obey them. Even when we try to resist, we are not exercising freedom. We are simply responding to a stronger force. A man who denies his impulses is not making an independent choice. He is acting on another compulsion, perhaps guilt, fear, or a need for control. What looks like freedom is merely a collision of forces, each pushing and pulling, while we mistake the movement for our own will. Schopenhauer compared human life to a river flowing in a direction it never chose. The water does not decide its path. It follows the landscape, shaped by forces beyond its control. The same is true for us. We move through life believing we are steering, never realizing that the current was set long before we ever became aware of it. Choice is not real. It is a trick of perception, a comforting lie that hides the reality of our own powerlessness. Schopenhauer believed that human life is not guided by reason, but by an unseen force he called the will, an unstoppable drive that dictates our every action. People assume they make conscious choices, but in reality, they are driven by impulses, instincts, and cravings they do not control. The illusion of freedom collapses the moment we realize that we do not decide what we want. Desire arises without permission. A person does not choose to feel hunger, love, ambition, or jealousy. These forces emerge from within, compelling them to act. Even when they resist temptation, they are not exercising free will. They are simply acting on a stronger impulse, whether it be discipline, pride, or fear of consequences. The mind does not govern the will. It merely justifies its demands after the fact. No one is free from this tyranny. The scholar seeks knowledge. The lover seeks affection. The warrior seeks victory, all believing they have chosen their path. But they did not create the desires that drive them. The artist does not decide to be obsessed with beauty. The thinker does not decide to be tormented by questions. These compulsions control them, not the other way around. Even satisfaction is an illusion. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place. The hunger for success does not end with achievement. It transforms into the fear of losing what has been gained. The pursuit of happiness does not lead to peace. It only replaces one craving with another. Schopenhauer saw human existence as a cycle of restless longing, where every fulfilled wish is merely the beginning of a new one. Freedom cannot exist when every action is dictated by forces beyond our control. The will does not grant choice, it enslaves. Even if a person could break free from their own desires, they would still be trapped by something greater, society. From birth, we are shaped by invisible forces, expectations, norms, traditions, all of which dictate how we think and act. Schopenhauer saw this as another layer of illusion, a system that convinces people they are independent while quietly controlling every aspect of their lives. No one chooses the circumstances they are born into, the language they speak, the values they adopt, the very concept of right and wrong. All of it is inherited, not chosen. A person may believe they have formed their own opinions, but these ideas are molded by culture, by family, by the era in which they live. A medieval peasant, a 21st century entrepreneur, and an ancient philosopher all see the world differently, not because they are free to think as they wish, but because they were shaped by forces outside themselves. Even rebellion is not true freedom. A person who rejects societal norms is still reacting to them, still defining themselves in opposition to something else. They may think they have escaped, but their identity is still tethered to the system they reject. The businessman chasing wealth and the monk renouncing materialism are both responding to forces they never truly controlled. Schopenhauer believed that society does not create individuals. It manufactures them. Each person is a product of the world they were born into, programmed by invisible rules that dictate their ambitions, beliefs, and limitations. True freedom, if it existed, would mean being able to step outside of these influences entirely. But this is impossible. No one thinks in a vacuum. No one acts without influence. And so, another illusion falls away. We are not free. We are conditioned. People believe they are in control of who they are. They take pride in their personality, their beliefs, their preferences, as if these things are choices, as if they have carefully constructed themselves from the ground up. But Schopenhauer argued that identity is not something we shape. It is something that happens to us. A person does not choose their temperament. Some are born anxious, others fearless. Some are naturally driven, others content with simplicity. These traits emerge long before conscious thought, dictated by genetics, brain chemistry, and early experiences. A child does not decide to be introverted or extroverted, skeptical or trusting, ambitious or indifferent. These aspects of identity form before they can even comprehend them. Even the beliefs people hold are not truly their own. They may think they arrived at their worldview through logic, but in reality, their conclusions are shaped by circumstances beyond their control. A person born into wealth sees the world differently from someone raised in poverty. A person surrounded by religious teachings will view life through a different lens than someone raised in atheism. They did not choose these starting points, yet these foundations determine how they think, what they value, and who they become. The self is an illusion, a construction built from forces we never commanded. Even change is not truly voluntary. People evolve because of experiences that reshape them, but they do not control which experiences come their way. The man who becomes wise through suffering did not choose the suffering. The woman who becomes fearless through hardship did not choose the hardship. Schopenhauer saw identity not as a personal achievement, but as a product of fate. We are not authors of the self. We are characters written by forces we cannot see. People spend their lives searching for freedom. They change careers, move to new cities, reinvent themselves, believing that with the right circumstances, they will finally be in control. But no matter where they go, no matter what they do, they carry the same mind, the same instincts, the same unseen forces that have always shaped them. Schopenhauer saw this as one of the great tragedies of human existence. The feeling of being trapped is real, but the solutions people seek are illusions. They believe that a fresh start will grant them control, that shedding old habits or surroundings will make them new. But nothing truly changes. The desires that drove them before still whisper in the background. The patterns of thought that ruled them still dictate their choices. A man who seeks freedom by rejecting material wealth may believe he has broken free from society's expectations. But his rejection is still shaped by those same expectations. He defines himself in opposition, rather than being free from them. A woman who leaves a toxic relationship may think she has escaped control, only to find herself drawn to the same dynamics in another form. The world changes around them, but the internal forces that guide them remain. Even those who seek freedom through self-mastery are bound by their own nature. The ascetic who denies pleasure does so because of a compulsion as strong as the one that drives the hedonist toward indulgence. The thinker who rejects social conventions is still ruled by the need to define themselves in contrast to others. There is no real escape. Schopenhauer believed that freedom is not found in running away, but in understanding that no external change will ever break the chains that were never physical to begin with. Everything that happens is the result of something that came before it. Every decision, every action, every thought is part of an unbroken chain of cause and effect. Schopenhauer believed that nothing in the universe happens without necessity. Everything is determined by the forces that preceded it, leaving no room for true freedom. People like to believe they are independent, that they shape their own future. But if every thought arises from a previous thought, if every choice is the product of experiences and influences beyond our control, then how can anything be truly free? The illusion of choice exists only because we are unaware of the full complexity of the causes that drive us. A person does not simply decide to be ambitious or indifferent. Their upbringing, genetics, and life circumstances have already laid the foundation for who they will become. The student who dedicates their life to knowledge did not arrive at this passion by pure will. It was shaped by their environment, their temperament, their exposure to ideas. The criminal who steals did not randomly choose to break the law. They were led to that moment by a series of events that made it inevitable. Even the feeling of regret, the sense that one could have chosen differently, is an illusion. If placed in the exact same conditions, with the same mind and the same influences, they would make the same decision again. There was never another path, only the one that was always going to be taken. Schopenhauer saw human life as a machine, each movement dictated by the mechanics of reality. We are not separate from the laws of the universe. We are part of them, bound by causality, trapped in a system that never allowed us to be free. If freedom is an illusion, how can we live with it? If everything is determined, if our choices are not truly ours, if we are bound by forces beyond our control, what is left? Schopenhauer believed that the only way to escape suffering was not through rebellion or illusion, but through acceptance. The moment we stop resisting reality is the moment we find peace. Most suffering comes from believing we should be in control. We fight against the things we cannot change, trying to bend the world to our will. But if everything is already set in motion, if the past, the present, and the future are all linked in an unbreakable chain, then struggle is pointless. The mind wastes energy on what was never in its power to alter. Schopenhauer saw this as one of the great misunderstandings of human life. People do not suffer because they lack freedom, but because they believe they were ever meant to have it. To find peace, we must abandon the illusion of control. This does not mean giving up or falling into despair. It means shifting our perspective, understanding that life unfolds as it must, and that resistance only deepens our suffering. The wise do not fight against the currents of existence, they move with them. Schopenhauer saw detachment as the only real path to liberation. To observe without clinging, to think without being consumed, to live without the false hope of absolute control. Freedom, as we imagine it, does not exist. But there is a deeper freedom, one that comes not from controlling life, but from no longer needing to. Only then can we find true stillness, beyond the illusions we once mistook for power.